Let us now start with understanding our project model. And this is one of the important lecture of this entire project. And as already mentioned, in this entire project, we are going to master useReducerHook. So inside our useReducer, we are going to have reducer function and our initial state. So inside initial state, we are going to pass the default state, and based on the actions we trigger inside the reducer function, we are going to update our state, and accordingly we are going to return new state. So initially what we will do, inside this initial state, we are going to pass the property quiz question, and for this we are going to assign the default value as empty array. Why we are assigning empty array? Because we are going to use API, and from that API we need to fetch the data. So initially we will not have any data. Initially our questions will be loaded inside the background, and during that time we are not going to have any data. So once successfully, if we have fetched the data from our API, then we are going to update this quiz question, and accordingly inside that we are going to pass this array of object, and here each object will be representing one question data. So inside that we are going to have question, then we are going to have our fourth option, and then we are going to have the property where it will mention what option is correct. Also, we will be having points property. So each object will be having one question data. Later on, we are going to loop through this data, and we are going to render on a screen. So this is how we are going to create our initial state. First, we are not going to have any data. So that is the reason we will pass empty array. Later on, as soon as we get the data, we are going to update our state, and accordingly we will be passing our data inside this quiz question property. But in this project, what I want to do, I just want to render different components based on user action. If I click on start quiz, only then I should be moving to quiz component, and accordingly I should be displaying my progress bar. I should display the question along with option, and also once the answer is selected, I should display the next button. So first what happens, my data will be fetched from the API. So that means our data is getting loaded. So in that case, what I want to do, I just want to render my loading component. If I am having any error, or if I have not started my JSON server, then what I have to do, I have to render this error component. If everything is ready and successfully, if I have fetched the data, then what I want to do, I just want to display my header component. Inside that we are having start quiz. So as soon as I click on start quiz, my quiz will be activated, and once my quiz is active, I just want to render my quiz main component where I will be having progress bar. Then I want to display my question component, and once I select the answer, then I have to display my next button. So after that, if I am in the last question, then I want to display finish button, and once it is finished, what I want to do, I just want to render this end quiz component. So here I am having different status, and based on this different status, I want to render different components. So what we can do, inside this initial state, we can pass properties for all the state. Is loading, is error, is active, is ready, is finished, and accordingly we can pass default values. But now the valid question is, for each and every different status, do we really need to create separate property and add inside initial state? The answer is no. Why? Because in this project, we are going to use useReducer, using which we can write a code in simple way. So here, for each and every status, instead of creating separate property inside initial state, what we can do, we can create only one property, and by default, our data will be loaded from API. So here default value I am just going to set as loading, and later inside the reducer function we are going to update our status, and based on the status value we are going to render different components. So here we are having status is equal to loading, status is equal to error, status is equal to ready, status is equal to active, and status is equal to finished. So inside this reducer, we are only going to update our status, and based on the status value, we are going to render different components. So for example, if my status is loading, then inside this app component, I only want to render this loading component. Apart from this loading component, I do not want to render any component. So once this loading component is rendered inside app component, only this loading component will be visible. So no matter how many components I am having in my project, it is not going to render any component. Why? Because my status is loading. Once this condition is true, I only want to render this loading component. And if I am having any error, then what I will do, I am just going to update my status to error. And once my status is error, inside this app component, I only want to render this error component. Then if my status is ready, once entire data is fetched, then what I will do, I am just going to update my status to ready. Once it is ready, inside this app component, I am just going to render this header component where I will be having welcome screen, and also inside that I will be having start quiz button. Once I click on start quiz, my status will be updated to ready. Once my status is ready, inside app component, I just want to render this quiz main component and question component. Inside this quiz main, we are having a timer component, and inside this question component, we are having this options component. So once our status is ready, this entire thing will be visible. And after that, once I click on the option, let it be correct or wrong, I just want to display my next button. After that, once I have successfully completed my quiz, after that, once I reach to last question, in that I will be selecting the option. Once I select the option, what I want to do, I just want to update my status to finish. Once my status is updated to finished, what I want to do, inside my app component, I just want to render this end quiz component where I will be having my score displayed, where I will be having emoji displayed along with the text, as well as my percentage will be calculated. And inside this end quiz, again, I will be having button to restart my quiz. Once I click on restart quiz, again what I will do, I'm just going to update my status to ready. Again, entire process will be repeated. So this is the entire logic you should understand before starting with the code. Once you have this mental model, then it will be easy for you to get started with the project, and also easily you will be able to understand flow of the project.